Why is retirement planning so prevalent today? If we go back in time, people didn't really focus on retirement planning because maybe they didn't live as long, they had maybe a pension, maybe they had Social Security. They didn't have too many concerns. Healthcare wasn't going to be as big of a deal because they weren't planning to live as long. And so how are we going to be able to make this work knowing that these are now concerns? Well, we're going to talk about in today's video some of these concerns, why are they the case, but also how do we plan to ensure that we can have the retirement that we want to. So many people say, I'm worried about running out of money. Well, let's discuss that worry. But for many of our clients we work with, we call them the Midwestern millionaire. They may not necessarily be worried about running out of money, but they may be worried about maximizing their life savings, taking advantage of every opportunity, not missing anything, so they can leave themselves with the most enjoyable retirement and potentially pass a legacy on to either their kids, a charity, an organization, something that is dear to their heart. So that's what's in store for today of this video of Joe Knows Retirement.
Joe knows taxes.
Joe knows the market.
Joe knows Social Security.
Joe knows income planning.
Joe knows pickleball? No.
This is Joe Knows Retirement.
So let me start with a story which I think explains this video so perfectly. So I was doing a workshop one time in our community here in Columbus, Ohio. We work with clients all across the country, and we always do educational content, whether it's YouTube, we get featured in Kiplinger twice a month, whether it's workshops in our community or webinars across the country. We love to educate because we feel that there's not enough education out there for retirement planning that's done the right way. We feel that there's all these different types of people recommending you to do different things in retirement, but we feel they either may be biased or they're not looking at the full picture. And so that's why we see our obligation, our opportunity with our firm is to deliver more help for the retiree. And we know as a firm, we can't serve everyone that wants to work with us. We have a lot of people who reach out to us. We try to bring on as many people as we can, but because our level of planning is so deep, we have to be careful of not taking on everyone so that our client service doesn't suffer. We're not necessarily trying to be the biggest, we're trying to be the best. And so with this educational content, this allows us to very easily scale this and reach as many people as possible. And if there are people out there that are a great fit to work with us, well, then that's an opportunity where they can schedule time with us and we can explore that further. So with this guy at the workshop, what he said was, I'm right there on that mountain. So I had a slide up of this mountain, and he said, I've been working all these years climbing this mountain for the last 40 years, and I've done great. I've been a diligent saver. I've been frugal. I've avoided high interest debt. I've saved into my 401k. I've gotten the kids into college. I've supported them throughout their lifetime. They've had no want of opportunity. And that was what he said to me. But he said, I'm right here at the top of this mountain, and I'm coming down. And he said, I'm a bit worried because I don't want to make a stupid mistake, is what he told me. And he said, I don't want to make a stupid mistake because that could be costly with my retirement. 1, 2, maybe 3 mistakes could cost everything that I've worked hard for the last 40 years. And he said, if I live till 90 and my wife lives till 90, that's a lot of years we have to plan for, knowing we're going to be retiring at age 60. And so again, retirement planning today is different than ever before. And so if that's you and you're thinking, how am I going to plan for this next part of my life without having a huge income from working, well, then this video is going to be for you. And what we do with a lot of our clients we work with is what we call a 5-pillar approach to help them plan coming down the mountain. Remember, going up the mountain is different than coming down. We see a lot of advisors who specialize in the accumulation phase, not enough that focus on the distribution of comprehensive planning. Some do investment planning, they try to do the distribution phase, but they're missing different pillars that could be involved there, such as tax planning, right? If we want to make sure we're taking income out of our investments, well, how much are we actually going to keep, right? It's not how much you take out of your investments, how much you keep, because we have to worry about the tax burden that's coming out there. And so tax planning is one of the most important foundations that we see in retirement planning today, because most of the people that we see or watch this video have a lot saved up in tax deferred vehicles from all their years of working. And now that you have a higher amount in tax deferred, you're going to be forced to take out of those investments something called a required minimum distribution at either age 73 or 75, which could bump your income up higher, force you to pay higher taxes in the future. And so these are all things that you're going to want to be aware of as you plan for this retirement. And we see healthcare be a big one as well too, because the long-term care costs are so expensive nowadays. I mean, you're looking at $50,000 to $100,000 that you could potentially have to pay in healthcare for your retirement. And that could be for a year, that could be for 3 years. That's typically average is 2 to 3 years that you're going to need to cover that type of expense. But what if you have some type of cognitive impairment? Now you need to cover it for 10 years. What's that going to mean for your spouse if that's going to drain your retirement savings over those years? And so we're seeing a lot of people worried about that because, again, we're living longer, but we may not necessarily be living healthier during all of those retirement years. And so these are things that we want to plan for. And what makes it very difficult from a healthcare planning standpoint is, look, long-term care insurance is really expensive right now. A lot of people we've worked with recently, we haven't really been looking into pure long-term care insurance. Now, don't take that as a recommendation. You need to see what it looks like for your situation. So what that means, though, is if we're not going to look that way, we've got to look somewhere else, because this is a 70% chance that we're going to need long-term care. And so for our clients, we like to get creative on different strategies that we look at to protect against long-term care. And again, you got to understand that if you're going to need to take $50,000 to $100,000 out of your investments to get down that mountain, that's going to be a very costly expense from a tax standpoint. And so you can see how some of these pillars start to play together, that tax planning and that healthcare. And obviously we know with Medicare costs increasing so much over the years, it's been about a 7% increase per year. They're projecting it to be another 6% ongoing is what some studies show. And so if that's the case, we're not only going to have to worry about long-term care, but what about just the increased out-of-pocket expenses for Medicare or anything else that we'll need that comes up from a healthcare standpoint? And Fidelity does a study that says each individual will probably have to pay over $150,000 in healthcare expenses outside of that long-term care expense. And so how are we going to come up with those funds if we're married to get $300,000 of cash or money to be able to pay for these needs here? And again, that's why retirement planning is so prevalent today, because we have to plan against these unknowns. And then obviously the income planning pillar, if we're going to need income in this gentleman's position that we talked about, that's 30 years of income that we need. If he needs to take $50,000 from his investments or $100,000 from his investments, how long's his nest egg going to last? And so we need to really evaluate to see what's your income actually going to be needed over retirement. How much money assets do you have? And then you've got to decide how much are you going to be able to spend over your retirement so you don't run out of money, right? So you're not worried about outliving your money if you live too long, if you want to call it that. And so those are all things, as you can see, that play together. And then from an investment standpoint, we got to make sure we're investing in the right way. Maybe we don't want everything all in the stock market, because if the market goes down and we have to take out money, it's called a double loss, right? Market goes down and we take it out, double loss. The question becomes, do we have enough time to make it up? Well, that's one consideration, but the other thing I can argue with that is if we have a 30-year retirement, we need to get some growth here. And so that's why we typically look at, with a lot of people we work with having a constructive income plan, making sure we have enough protected to cover our income needs over the next maybe 3, 5, or 10 years, depending on your risk tolerance, and then make sure the rest is still growth oriented, because we have to keep up with inflation. We have to keep up with these rising healthcare costs over time. And so that can be a way to position your retirement moving forward from an investment planning standpoint that can play a part in the income planning pillar as well. And then we all know estate planning, right? And so if you are going to be able to do all these other 4 pillars successfully and still likely end up with money at the end of retirement, well then now it gets important to do some planning here, right? A lot of the clients we work with, right, again, Midwestern millionaires who we work with, they've been diligent savers. They're probably not going to spend every last dollar they have. So estate planning becomes a very important thing for them. And it's important in many different ways. And one of the biggest considerations that our clients look at is the widow's penalty when it comes to estate planning. Yes, you need to get all your estate planning documents in order, your power of attorney, your will, maybe a trust, depending on which state you're in and what your situation looks like. And again, some states you may not necessarily need a trust. So here in Ohio, for example, you don't need a trust on your house to avoid probate. You could just get what's called a transfer on death. So that's just one reason why maybe you don't need a trust. There's many other reasons to evaluate, but you've probably heard all the time, hey, I need a trust. Well, maybe not. But again, this is all estate planning documents. They're very important, but are you looking for just estate planning documents, or are you looking for an estate plan? An estate plan involves planning for things like the widow's penalty or maximizing the amount you leave to your kids, due to the stretch IRA no longer existing, and now your kids have to take out that money in 10 years. And so those are all things that we need to start planning for now to get ahead of that estate plan down the road. If we wait till we pass away, it's too late. You can't come out of your grave and make any decisions on your financial plan. We've got to start implementing those now, especially when we have the time, but also with tax rates potentially being lower for some for when it comes to transferring wealth. And so those are things that we can look at. But when it comes to the widow's penalty, that's one of the things that a lot of these Midwestern millionaires are worried about, because if they pass away, their tax brackets are going to increase. They're going to have to pay nearly double the amount of taxes at that time, and their spouse is going to be left with a lesser amount in Social Security, right? One of the Social Security goes away, you keep the higher of the two. And so you want to get ahead of that estate planning, right? You can do some tax planning strategies now, maybe things like Roth conversions or tax loss harvesting to set that spouse up for success. And so you really want to make sure you're looking ahead and not backwards, right? We think of it as proactive versus reactive. Don't look in the rear view mirror, look ahead at how we're going to plan moving forward, right? Because if we're not making decisions that are going to help us plan for the next 3, 5, 10 years or more, then we're just making changes that don't have to do with the future and not going to set us up for success, right? When our clients come in and work with us, we call our end of year planning sessions. We don't call them reviews. We call them planning sessions. We're looking ahead of how can we get this tax plan organized for this year, and then what are we going to be looking to implement next year and the year after and the year after that, so that we can put together this 5 or 10-year tax plan of how we're going to take advantage of these opportunities. And so those are some of the considerations. Again, it all comes down to that 5-pillar approach. And I wrote a book on this concept called Peak Retirement, where it just talks through our firm's approach on these 5 pillars to help people live that retirement that they've worked so hard for, that they deserve. And if you'd like a copy of that book, we don't give away this book much, but if you would, go ahead and just, there should be a link below in the description that you can request one. Obviously we have our I Hate Taxes book that a lot of people love to read, which was an Amazon bestseller. But if you'd like to read this one as well, just click the link. We'll have someone on our team send that out to you to ensure you can learn more about these 5 pillars. And this book's a really easy read. I tried to write it very concisely to get all the 5 pillars covered that people need to make sure they have in place as they either enter in retirement or they plan as they are in retirement. And so hope that can be a helpful resource for you. Also, if you'd like to subscribe to this channel, we'll keep content just like this where we cover the 5 pillars for those enter near retirement who are that Midwestern millionaires, we call them. And that, again, to give you a little teaser, that will be my 3rd book coming out here soon. It's called The Midwestern Millionaire, which is going to be my personal favorite. So with that being said, hopefully you enjoyed the video, and hopefully you continue watching, and we're going to continue to provide you great content moving forward.